February 21st, and marks actually my 41st day here in Mauritius. So yeah, as you can see, it's pretty hot here, quite a different vibe from New York. I'm presently in the site where I'm teaching. It's called the Mauritius Institute of Education. You can see by that sign right there. And my first month started a little slow, but I'm definitely in the full strength of things here, teaching 5 classes. What's been really nice about being at this university is that instead of just being thrown in immediately, not necessarily knowing all the elements that occur within teaching in this context in Mauritius, I was able to work with other teachers before that. And that really was good because instead of just having to kind of be not even knowing how an education system works, I was able to be here, but also talk with the local teachers to know what they're doing, what they have for their curriculum, and to be more appropriate in meeting the needs of the students and what the general aim is for the Mauritius Institute of Education. And their main goal is to develop more resources and teach future teachers of the country here. I would have to say, in due time, I'm actually going to be starting to teach high school students mid-March, which is going to be great because I kind of miss that, being around the younger energy. I'll be in 3 different cities. 2 are more major cities and 1 is a more rural area, so that will be good to see the different realities. I'm looking forward to going to an elementary school. I've started a number of different projects and we'll see which one will fruition. One involved taking books, could be books I brought from America or books that are popular here in Mauritius, and singing them. Why? I think singing is a really good way of getting people's attention, doing call and response as well. So I'm hoping to make a couple of those. My podcast has slowed down a bit, but I'll get back at it. I've been fairly lucky here to have some help with transportation and food when I'm here at the university, so that's been very easy, and I think I have stable housing by now, so that's also very good. I was able to find this amazing dictionary of Mauritian Sign Language at a school in a city near Port Louis, and it's quite different than American Sign Language. Interestingly, here in Mauritius, they have American Sign Language in one city and Mauritian Sign Language in another. So there's 2 different sign languages, just how there's numerous languages here. I have a course that I'm teaching that relates more to teaching pedagogy. So these are future teachers who are working on strategies that they could use to keep their students more engaged. And I have another course, I have 2 of those courses like that. And I have another course that's focused on communication. And interestingly enough, the first day I was there, they are actually starting a meditation palliative research study to see the impacts of breathing and other mindfulness activities on students. So I guess I ended up in the right classroom because that's something that I made my undergrad studies about. I also have classes that are focused more on just getting English teachers' own competency up and their own confidence up in how they use English, because English is the language of national instruction in Mauritius. However, if one doesn't necessarily feel fluent or confident in English, you can teach using that medium, but it could become quite challenging. As you can see, I'm on a bench on a picnic table that's at an angle, so that's why this video keeps falling down, but it's part of the experience, right? And I'm hoping to develop some activities that would relate to teaching deaf students, because I think that it's an area that's kind of on the frontier of new experiences. There's not a lot of curriculum related to it here in Mauritius, or maybe even globally. So I enjoy the excitement of using movement and kinesthetic learning in my personal teaching, as well as in hopefully working with students who are deaf, possibly on Fridays. And one of the activities that I was thinking around was related to Montessori. Montessori was a teacher from Italy, and I want to use things in nature, such as leaves, twigs, for students to learn how to write letters. Because I think not all, but a lot of letters naturally are occurring in nature, and if they're not occurring in nature, you can easily create a letter just by adapting the nature that you have. So here's an example I came up with just in my head presently. The letter A. So what I'm imagining for this pedagogy, which I'm sure is not completely new, is taking things in nature. Mauritius is a spot with a lot of nature. It's known for its ecological diversity, and seeing how to use things in nature for teaching, because it's very easy to just think teaching involves a piece of paper, a pen, a student, a teacher, and that's it in the classroom. But there's different ways of interacting with information, and I think it's something I've been learning in the class that I'm taking in tabla, which is traditional Indian drumming at the Indira Gandhi Center, is that the way that I learn, and I don't know if this is similar to others, but I know that in my process, I hear information, it goes in, it kind of transforms or changes the format or the actual meaning, and then what I need to do is say it back to the person who taught it to me, and they reflect back to me, oh yeah, that's right, or no, not like that. And that process goes back and forth a couple of times. So it's kind of like a feedback, self-assessment, teacher-student relationship revelation that I had in regards to what kinds of experiences I want to structure in my classroom. And they involve that same kind of back and forth. Now there's not one right answer, but there's different answers for different tasks. Or it could be one right answer based on what the task is. But I think that this idea of a continual communication between one who knows something and one who's learning is, well, actually both people know something. Both the student and teacher know something. They just are sharing information. But the point is that I pedagogically want to do more of this back and forth. People present information, I get feedback. People present information, I get feedback. We discuss it. And the concept that I've really enjoyed in a classroom of mine is using doodling for teaching purposes. And rather than me being the source of all information, I present information to students. I present the supports they need to access that information. And of course, I'm facilitating classroom discussions and for students who are working in small groups, but I let them present the information that they understood in the text. And then how do they do it? Not just saying, writing back what the words were on the page, but writing in their own words, maybe making a picture and then a caption, and really trying to think visually, because I think it's very easy to get lost in the worlds of thoughts and ideas, and then you wonder, oh, what was I even trying to say? I mean, maybe for people who are theoretical, it could work. But, you know, I met one person about 5 days ago, was working in the library here, and he mentioned that he actually had dropped out of school a couple years ago, and it's just starting again here in the Open University. I believe schooling is free here in Mauritius, and Little University. And he mentioned about the teacher saying information and him not being able to understand it. And when we look at the relationship between teachers and students, this is a perennial problem. This is an issue that faces classrooms and students around the world with or without disabilities, or different abilities. We would call it disability in another nomenclature, another way of describing it, that we must continually reflect on. And what I said to him was that maybe he needs to repeat the information back out loud, right? Because there's lower levels of understanding, which are just seeing and hearing information, and the higher level is teaching that information back to someone, or hearing it, writing it, and then speaking it, or making it a discussion topic with a pair, or singing it, or making it into an image and then describing that to someone, and kind of the interaction of you and information gives you the ownership over that information versus here's the information, take it, it's yours, and do something with it, which is a little bit more fake. So I think he appreciated that. I actually was in the library singing different books, so it's quite different, but I'm going to hopefully get to try that out soon in the classrooms, the kind of call and response approach to teaching. A little bit about the history of Mauritius, since I have it on this coin. If you can see, there's a little man there. And what he's doing is he is working the sugarcane fields. Quick history lesson on the country. Before the Dutch were here and the Portuguese, there was really no one here. It was just kind of a tropical paradise, pearl in the Indian Ocean. And then when they did come, and the French as well, they started doing sugar plantations, and they needed labor, so they brought people from East Africa. And then once there was a liberation of slavery in the 1800s, and as well when the English took over the island from the French, did it in a very sly way, they brought in, I think it was around 500,000, I'm not exactly sure how many, but a lot of people from the Indian subcontinent, predominantly the regions that are now India and Pakistan. Well, I'm not even sure if it was Pakistan, it's probably just India, but certain states in particular. So this is a piece of the history on this coin that I just have on my book. What am I looking forward to? I've been here 41 days. I have another 300 or 290 or 85. I'd say we're going to have an English conference here. It's going to be really good. I'm hoping to maybe expand the conference in the sense that rather than it just being focused on English, I'm really interested, as you can see, on the topic of inclusion, not just for deaf students, but for all students. So I'd like to know how to make that a theme. So it could be like education and inclusion in English, or maybe as well the environment. So kind of the theme is education, right? The overall theme. And then it can be English as a sub-theme of one day, but then maybe the second day is inclusive education in English. Or the third day could be the environment and education. Because, these concepts, we've been discussing it today about reading, writing, speaking, and listening. As human beings, we like to delineate, I'm here, you're there. I'm this, you're that. And, that's speaking activity and this is listening activity. But in reality, there's a continual experience of back and forth between speaking and listening, right? Or between reading and writing. You read something, and then if you need to write about that, it's because you've gotten new knowledge. So they are separate tasks that have different learning objectives, but at the same time, they kind of integrate to the whole. So it's something that I definitely want to infuse in kind of the lessons that my students are going to be making, because it's one of the main things that they're going to have to be making their own lessons applied to the curriculum and using the textbook and their creativity and their own assessments and all this in groups. And I think that I want them to see the layers at which kind of a layered curriculum can have different entry points for different learners, but as well the layers at which information for an English class can very easily become information for a math class or a science class, and kind of thinking around how to look at that cross-curricular experience for students. I know today someone was presenting on telling the time in English, and obviously that's a mathematical skill as well, to be able to say it's 3:45 or it's 3:30, and really the integration of different skills, and also to not overwhelm students, both the students I have and the students that they will have in the future, with too much information. So too many phrases, too much stimulation. It ends up leaving one really incapable of integrating it all and using it in a practical way. I think that's one of the reasons why I decided to start all of my classes with breathing activities, because our mind and body's natural state is to take the information from our different environments that we exist in and need to kind of survive in. And what that means is we're constantly carrying all of our experiences from the past into the present. And that means that we're not maybe able to be as present with what's happening right now. So I found that for my own personal teaching experience, teaching after breathing is a lot better, and it's something that I'm going to share a lot more students. So I want to teach more breathing to students. I'm excited for starting my conference. It'll probably